It's the season of SUVs. We just did a compact SUV comparo with the new Nexon. The link to that video is somewhere out here. And now we have the mid SUVs. We've got new mid SUVs. The Seltos, it has been facelifted and it gets a new engine. The Citroen C3 Aircross is all new and entrant in the segment. The Elevate, Honda's entry into the segment. We got the hybrid Grand Vitara. We got the Astor out there. We got the Taigun with the 1.5 TSI engine. And we have the Creta. This class is the Creta class. The Creta, it is still the best-selling mid SUV in the country. Can any of these other SUVs out Creta the Creta in the Creta's segment? That's what we're going to find out. And in this video, there is a lot to pack in. So it is a long video. We are going to put out chapters and Anand is here to help me out.
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the styling, the comfort, the features, practicality, the price range and all the powertrain options all these cars come with, except for of course the C3 Aircross. It gets a turbo petrol and a manual gearbox. Lena hai to lo, otherwise move on.
So this is the Evo India channel. So we're going to start with the drag race. We're going to find out which is the quickest SUV in this test. We're also going to do an interesting comparison where we're going to pitch the naturally aspirated engine of the Elevate against the turbo petrol of the Citroen C3 Aircross. So we're going to get started, but before that, you hit the like button, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts, hit that bell icon to stay notified for our video drops and give us a thumbs up, drop a comment, let us know which of these SUVs will be your pick. We start our drag race with the Seltos and the Taigun. Now the Seltos gets the new 1.5 turbo petrol engine and on paper it has got more power than the 1.5 TSI on the Volkswagen. Which is fastest? Let's find out.
Right, so the Taigun's DCT is challenged by the Seltos' DCT.
Now first switch off ESP. It's got drive mode, so obviously we put it into sport.
Put it in sport mode, air conditioning off.
Aircon off.
This is down on power of course, but I'm backing Germany on this.
We got paddle shifters also. Right, ready to go. Okay, 3, brake torque it, go. That's a surprisingly good launch by the Seltos. Took out, I think, 1 car length out of the Taigun at the start itself, and yep. I think we need to do a rematch. Right, aircon off, sport mode, start stop also off. So it launches at 1500 RPM. The Taigun gets a slightly better start. No way, Taigun's faster? Okay, at 100, it's closing in, it's closing in, it's closing in, it's closing in, it's closing in. The Taigun is half a car length ahead at the quarter mile mark. Half a car length.
The Taigun won with about 10 horsepower less than the Seltos. The DSG gearbox, of course brake torquing doesn't work, but it does launch faster than the Seltos if I put my foot down.
So basically brake torquing on the Taigun is not working. So let's try the second one, and I also won't brake torque on the Seltos. So that's what we'll do. I won't brake torque on the Seltos also. So basically when they say 3, just step on it and go. That's the reason why we do these drag races, to actually tell you in the real world what is faster. So lesson 1 for today is that the Taigun, it launches better when you do not brake torque. Now brake torque is when your left foot is on the brake, right is full on the gas. At 3, you just lift off the brake and you launch. Obviously it's not working well on the Taigun because it's also done so that the DSG gearbox has good life and it doesn't wear out quickly, but obviously it doesn't give you as strong a response when you're launching it. Right, so now no brake torquing, we just step on the gas. Okay, perfect launch. And the TSI engine, it gets on song quicker than the Seltos.
Off the line. German horses are stronger than Korean horses.
It's pulled out 1 car length, and I don't believe it, but the Taigun is still quicker than the Seltos.
Look at that Seltos. Third gear, 120, 130, 140 crossing the line. Wow.
1 car length ahead of the Seltos.
Wow. 10 less horsepower, but the Seltos loses this one.
Well, you learn something new every day. And the Seltos, even with the new engine, even with 10 bhp more, the Taigun is faster. Now this is my first time driving the C3 Aircross, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. First things first, AC off, no climate control. It's got rotary dials. Manual handbrake, manual gearbox, it's a 6-speed manual. Put the armrest up. Okay, steering, wow, it doesn't adjust for reach, only rake. No sunroof to shut, so forget that. First gear.
This one I'm not too excited about. I'm going up against a turbo petrol and this has a CVT gearbox, so I'm not expecting the Elevate to go fast off the line, but it has more power than the C3 Aircross, so let's see how it goes down the road.
So Anand has it easy on this drag race because he just has to brake torque the Elevate and launch. And as we've seen with the City also, the CVT, it launches quite well. This we'll have to find out.
Jumped it off the line.
Was that the ESP kicking in? Because it launched quite well and look at that.
What's happening?
Once it launches, then it just keeps going.
Wow, it's left it for dead. That was a pleasant surprise for me. Now, I'm sure Sirish is going to try some tricks in launching that Aircross better than last time. So let's see how that goes. I'm quite excited actually. I didn't expect the Elevate to do that well. It's got 45 Nm less than the C3 Aircross, yet it was miles ahead at the finish line. Wow. Round 2, Elevate versus the C3 Aircross.
So the figures. Now the C3 Aircross is turbo petrol. It makes 109 bhp. That's 10 bhp down on the 119 on the Elevate. But I have a torque advantage. 190 versus 145. Okay, I launched better.
So he did launch well.
Wow, I've taken him. Is he going to take me? Is he going to take me? Half a car length, half a car length, half a car length.
Oh, am I catching him? I'm catching him, I'm catching him. Come on, one more shift. Oh, that was close. That was close.
And yep, the C3 is faster. The 1 litre turbo petrol is faster. So the moral of the story is that torque is better for drag races than outright power. 190 Newton meters versus 145 Newton meters, so almost 45 Newton meters difference, and that's made the difference in making the Citroen C3 faster than the Hyundai Elevate, which is a shame really, because that 1.5 NA engine on the Elevate and the Honda City is the sweetest revving naturally aspirated engine like ever.
Wow. Okay, best of 3. Let me see if I can do something different.
half a length, half a car length. Turbo torque.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! Oh,
Man, that's like nose to nose to nose.
just damn it! That was epic.
And the C3 wins the drag race.
Got him on the first race, but the second and third he launched better, and it just showed how well you can launch a manual gearbox. If you can launch it well, you get off the line quicker.
So drag race is done. What have we learned? The 1.5 TSI on the Taigun is faster than the 1.5 TGDI on the Seltos. So that is a big learning. The second is the 1.5 NA engine on the Elevate is not as quick as the 1 liter turbo petrol engine represented here by the C3 Aircross. So turbo torque wins over naturally aspirated torque. That 45 Newton meters gap, that really takes the advantage, takes the cake on a drag race. And now, with the drag races done, with our performance testing done, let's jump into the cars and talk about it, give it a proper road test. And I'm going to start with the Elevate because honestly, I really feel for that 1.5 NA engine. I really love that City iVTEC engine. That it didn't win the drag race is gutting, is disappointing, but it has a lot of strengths, chiefly the refinement. I'm in the C3 Aircross and I can feel all the 3-cylinder grumbling. That is super smooth. So let's jump into that to start off. I'm going to start with the Elevate because I have no qualms in admitting that this engine I have a soft spot for. Now, this is one of the outliers of the field. Everything else have got turbo petrol engines. This has got a naturally aspirated petrol engine, and this is the Honda iVTEC engine. The smoothness of the engine, the refinement of the engine, the fuel efficiency of the engine, the quality, the reliability, all of this is, in my opinion, unbeatable in this category. I'm cruising at 80 and all I can hear is a little bit of wind noise from the mirrors. That's it. The engine, you can't hear it, you can't feel it. At idle, at times you are actually stabbing the start-stop button because you're not sure whether it's actually running. It is that smooth. Honda really makes incredibly good engines, and this is a highlight. But I also have to temper my enthusiasm by telling you that this is not the most powerful in this test. You saw the drag race. This isn't even faster than the 1 liter turbo petrol. Forget the 1.5 turbo petrol. So in terms of out and out performance, you'd be better off picking the manual gearbox. What we have here is the CVT. And even though they've tried really hard to reduce that CVT effect, like for instance, when I floor it now, so revving 5.5, 6.5, goes back to 5.5, 6.5, goes back to 5.5. So it actually simulates the actual gear shifting. That is done well, but it does sound a bit hectic, a bit strained. It sounds like it is being asked to do a lot of work. And after a while, you will just say, forget it, and you'll cruise at 80, 100 at the speed limit. So what's the Elevate like to drive? Well, in a nutshell, I can tell you that this is a Honda City on stilts. It's a Honda City with raised ground clearance. Everything that you knew, loved and respected about the Honda City, it's all there in the Elevate with the added benefit of the whole SUV packaging. So I'm sitting a little bit higher up, so better visibility out. The ground clearance is a little better than the Honda City. Though that said, the Honda City, nobody ever complained about its ground clearance because it could go over the nastiest speed breakers without a problem. But this, better ground clearance. The ride quality is actually very good. That's a surprise. The ride quality is good. The suspension feels a little bit like a Honda, where that little bit of fragility is there. It feels a little bit light, but the ride comfort is good. The handling is good. It is sharp It is precise, it feels light and agile on its feet. It doesn't feel like you're asking too much of it when you throw it around corners. It remains stable, it remains planted, there is good bite from the front end, and when it eventually descends into understeer, the clarity is actually very good. The overall packaging of the Elevate is something that I really like. Now Anand is going to talk to you about the space at the back, the features, the fact that the Elevate, it does not get a panoramic sunroof, only a regular size sunroof. But I'm here to tell you that the interiors, they don't feel special enough. The Seltos, you look at it and you go, wow. The Creta, even today, you say, that's good. But the Elevate, it's just okay. It doesn't break any new barriers, doesn't set any new benchmarks. And that is one of the drawbacks of this car. Oh, you also get paddle shifters. And the paddle shifters sort of simulate the effect of a regular automatic, but it's still it sounds so strained and having to work really, really hard. It is robbing the engine of a little bit of enthusiasm, but I drove the manual and I can tell you the manual made it to this engine. When the day is right, when the time is right, when you are in the mood for it, nothing beats caning a naturally aspirated engine. Even with the powerful TSI engine of the Taigun, the enthusiasm, the joy, the sheer thrill of driving that this engine gives you is, man, it really has my heart. And the fact that the Citroen C3 beat it in the drag race, that broke my heart.
The Elevate is one of the newest SUVs in this lineup along with the C3 Aircross, but the traditional design makes it look a little plain Jane. It doesn't have the level of road presence that you get with some of the other SUVs in this test. But it's a regular Honda, looks like a solid Honda, feels like a solid Honda, nice power bulges on the bonnet. They look even nicer from the driver's seat. So let me take you to the interiors of the Elevate and show you what it looks like on the inside, what are the features in the Elevate, and what's interesting on the inside. The best seats in the business. Yes, the Elevate, like the Honda City in the sedan segment, offers the best seat comfort of all the SUVs in this class. However, it does lack a few features. You don't get cooled seats. You get a regular handbrake, not an e-brake. Seats are manually adjustable. It just doesn't have a lot of the features that you get in something like a Seltos. Even the roof lining, this feels very basic. A regular sunroof, not a panoramic sunroof. So the Elevate does skimp on a few features, but the ones that meet the eye, they feel quite nice. The forward over here, nice soft touch over here. I love this chocolatey brown seat cover, really nice. The steering is nice. It gets ADAS features. It gets all its controls. The ones that you need to use often are proper buttons. The ones that you don't need to use often are touch. The screen, not the best in the business, but I think it does a good job. Now let me take you to the back seat and show you the space in the Elevate, the comfort in the Elevate. The Elevate costs a lot less than most of the cars in this segment, like the Creta, Seltos, even the Taigun. Well, it shows in the interiors. From the rear, you feel like the cabin is a lot smaller because of the small sunroof. You don't get a panoramic sunroof in the Elevate. The two AC vents here, a big miss is this 12-volt power outlet only. You don't get Type C or Type A ports. The seats are comfortable but lack a bit of under-thigh support. Knee room is adequate, headroom is adequate. You get a nice armrest here with two cup holders. Now let me take you to the boot and show you how much space the Elevate has in its boot. The Elevate gets the third biggest boot in this segment, 458 liters of boot space, and you've got a good depth here, so you can load big bags into the Elevate. It's similar to the Creta and the Seltos, but because of the depth, you can load a lot more bags in the Elevate. Prices start from rupees 11 lakh for the Elevate. This top-end CVT variant of the Elevate with a dual-tone exterior color, it's priced at rupees 16.28 lakh ex-showroom Delhi, and that makes it the second least expensive car in this segment. But unlike the top-end variant of the other cars here, it could definitely do with more features. For example, it only gets a semi-digital cluster which mimics a traditional unit. There's no 360-degree camera either. You only get a naturally aspirated 1.5-litre petrol engine with a manual or a CVT gearbox option.
It's actually incorrect in saying that the Elevate is the only naturally aspirated engine in this test. The Grand Vitara, this also gets a naturally aspirated engine, but this also gets hybrid assistance and is all the better for it. Now in terms of figures, the Grand Vitara hybrid, it puts out 114 bhp and 141 Newton meters of torque, both of which are slightly less than the Elevate. But because of the hybrid assistance, when you put your foot down, okay, you do get that CVT rubber band effect, but you also get a punchier turn of pace. 0 to 100 on the Grand Vitara hybrid is a whole second quicker than the Elevate. It does this in 11 seconds. So the Grand Vitara hybrid is actually faster than the Elevate. And also the Grand Vitara hybrid is the most fuel efficient mid SUV. This thing, it sips fuel. We've been driving it like hooligans and it's still delivering almost 19 kilometers to the liter, 18.6 kilometers to the liter to be precise. So this is a very efficient car. The hybrid is also a very refined car. Now, when the engine is running, this motor is not as pin drop quiet as the Elevate. But a lot of the times, I got my foot off the brakes. Now it is in hybrid mode, basically in the EV mode, and there is zero noise. The engine is not running. Very often you take off from traffic signals, you take off from your parking in pure EV mode, and the silence of that EV mode, that really is something different from all these other combustion engines. I actually got my foot slightly on the accelerator. We are going slightly uphill and there's nothing. It's just running on pure electric power. The engine has kicked in now. And again, the refinement, that switch over is so good that unless you're looking at the dial or you're keeping a sharp ear out, you will not hear it, you will not feel it. These powertrains, well, this is a Toyota powertrain. This is a Toyota. The Grand Vitara is made for Suzuki by Toyota at the Toyota factory in Bidadi outside Bangalore. So this is a Toyota. The car itself is a Suzuki. The platform is a Suzuki platform. So it's a lot of mix and match of these two manufacturers. But end of the day, this has all of Toyota's expertise in terms of hybrid powertrains and Suzuki's expertise in terms of making an affordable car for India, packed with features. Stuff like it's got a 360-degree camera. This is the only car in this test with a head-up display, which I've left shut because I don't like those things intruding into my field of vision. Do you like the head-up display? Let us know in the comments. Other things, cooled seats. Very nice. Of course, there are other cars also in this test that have cooled seats, but this is a nice touch. It's got a panoramic sunroof. Elevate does not have a panoramic sunroof. But the problem is this sort of curtain that it gets, it does not keep away the hot sun. So in the afternoon when you're driving, you have the sun directly above and you can get a headache. This is not a smart idea for India and a surprising miss given that Suzuki, Maruti, they know Indian customers better than anybody else. Okay, what else do I like on the Grand Vitara? Seats, they're nice. Driving position is good. These are manual seats. These are not electrically operated seats. The digital cluster is nice. It gives you a whole bunch of information that you need. The steering is actually pretty good. In fact, this is an agile car. Suzuki's DNA is hatchbacks, right? And even though they've made this mid SUV, it still has Suzuki's hatchback DNA. And that means it is easy to drive, it feels light, it corners enthusiastically, and it's something that really encourages you to drive hard and fast. Throwing it around a couple of corners is actually a pretty enjoyable task. This powertrain refinement is so good that you hear a lot of wind noise. You throw it around a few bends and there is a really nice amount of grip. You can really lean on the front end, push it hard. That Swift DNA is present in the Grand Vitara. So nice to fling around. Of course, the Taigun has a slight edge in terms of its ability around corners, But the Grand Vitara is a fun mid SUV to drive. In fact, the Grand Vitara is one of those SUVs that really surprises you with the overall package. No wonder this is the fastest mid SUV to clock 1 lakh sales. In fact, the Grand Vitara is just celebrating its first birthday and sales are really strong. In fact, riding on the back of the Grand Vitara sales, Maruti Suzuki is now the largest SUV manufacturer in the country, overtaking Tata Motors, who in turn had overtaken Hyundai. In all the enthusiasm about cornering, I probably forgot to talk about the ride comfort. And I will point out that this also rides pretty well. In fact, it handles so well that we tend to ignore the ride comfort. And this platform is so torsionally rigid that just like the Taigun, this can also lift an inside rear wheel when you're cornering it hard. We did that when we drove the Hyrider, we did that when we drove the Grand Vitara for the first time. This is enthusiastic. Now, if you don't want to spend too much on the hybrid, you can also get the regular non-hybrid, which confusingly Maruti Suzuki calls Smart Hybrid, whereas the regular hybrid is only called hybrid. Now, you would normally think that Smart Hybrid is a little bit smarter than a regular hybrid, but it's the other way around. The Smart Hybrid is the micro hybrid, whereas the hybrid is the regular hybrid, and the hybrid is the one that will give you this crazy fuel efficiency figure. Now, forget all of that. If you want to go and explore the outdoors, but you want a sensible car for the city, you can also get all-wheel drive with the Grand Vitara. But the all-wheel drive is only available with the manual gearbox. You can't get an automatic with that, which is a bit of a letdown, and that's the reason probably why the all-wheel drive Grand Vitara accounts for just 2% of overall Grand Vitara volumes, which is a shame really, because that all-wheel drive drivetrain, it works so well. It's such a nice drivetrain. In fact, you stick that all-wheel drive drivetrain into sport mode and it will power oversteer. And that's all the excuse we need to put out these sideways shots of the Grand Vitara all-wheel drive. And with the Grand Vitara all-wheel drive, you can also go through gravel tracks at speed. You can go through slush. You can cross small little streams. The Grand Vitara all-wheel drive is really the jack of all trades that nobody expected, but it delivers. In fact, if Maruti Suzuki plans to go back to motorsport, which I think they are planning, the Grand Vitara all-wheel drive and the Jimny are the two vehicles that they can take to rallying and which can really deliver for them. And because the Grand Vitara has the genes, it has the base for a great rally car, amongst all other cars in this test, this is one of my picks.
I said it at the times of the first drives of the Grand Vitara. I think it's one of the smartest looking SUVs in the segment. Comes close to what the Seltos looks like. Sirish likes the Taigun's design. What do you like? Do let us know in the comment section below. This Grand Vitara though, the strong hybrid, makes a lot of sense. Now let me take you to the interiors and show you what's on the inside. Now step inside the Grand Vitara and you find that it's a lovely place to be in. This is the strong hybrid. So you start the car and it's completely quiet. It starts in EV mode. Some of the materials are very nice, but the hard plastics, not quite nice. Seats are perforated, cooled, very comfortable. The front seats are a lovely place. You get a heads-up display in the Grand Vitara. You get automatic climate control. You get a massive panoramic sunroof, but that blind is very flimsy. That's the only drawback in the interior of the Grand Vitara, except for the hard touch plastics. Now let's take you to the back seat and tell you all about the space in the back seat. The Grand Vitara has a nice spacious cabin. You get AC vents here, you get Type C and Type A ports here. In the seat, well, good under thigh support, decent knee room, not the best, but the headroom is a little tight. You get an armrest with 2 cup holders. Now let me take you to the rear, show you the boot space in this car. Now what's surprising is that despite the quite large and boxy exterior, the Grand Vitara has the smallest boot in this segment. The regular Grand Vitara has 373 liters of boot space, the smallest, smaller than the Taigun. And the hybrid, well, this has only 265 liters of boot space because of all the hybrid hardware inside the boot. The Grand Vitara range starts from rupees 10.7 lakh and goes up to 19.83 lakh. comes with a 1.5 litre Natas petrol motor mated to either a 5-speed manual gearbox or a 6-speed auto box. You also get the same engine powering the all-wheel drive variant. Alternatively, you could choose the Toyota developed strong hybrid that is used in this very test. The battery is in the boot, which eats up on storage space for the SUV. Pricing is not very competitive for the strong hybrid. You get a Toyota for about 60 grand less than the Maruti. It demands rupees 19.8 lakh ex-showroom of your hard-earned money, and that makes it the second most expensive car in this test.
The Seltos is the car that made Kia the force that it is to reckon with in India today, and now it has been thoroughly updated. This is a facelift, but it is a little bit more than just a facelift. Top of that list is this new engine. Now this is the 1.5 turbo petrol engine that is being rolled out right across the Hyundai motor group. So all the Hyundai cars that had the earlier 1.4 and all the Kias that had the earlier 1.4 now get this new 1.5 engine, which has been heavily localized. And the benefit of that heavy localization is the cost effectiveness. This also claims to deliver better fuel economy than the earlier 1.4 engine. So that is another plus, and of course it meets the new BS 6.2 emission norms. Now the engine is mated to the 7-speed DCT automatic gearbox, which you really can't launch enthusiastically. None of these DSG or DCT gearboxes get launch control, which is a shame really, because once you get going, well, you can really feel the punch of the engine. Now, this engine, like I said earlier, it is the most powerful in this test, up by 10 bhp compared to the TSI on the Taigun. It's got a little bit more torque, just 3 Newton meters more, but it has a little bit more torque on paper, and that makes it a strong engine. It did come second in the drag race behind the Taigun, but when we tested it, 0 to 100 on the Seltos is just 1/10 of a second slower than the Taigun. Just 1/10, which in the real world is next to nothing. In some instances, if you launch slightly better, if your reaction times are slightly better, the Seltos will take on the Taigun on the drag strip. But it's just 1/10 of a second. Fact is, the Taigun is quicker, but the Seltos does feel strong, does feel punchy on the road. You step on it, the gearbox downshifts with enthusiasm. You ride the torque curve, and this is a properly quick mid SUV. It is enthusiastic, there is a good turn of pace, and of course that turbo punch that you get, that mid-range punch, is addictive. Mechanically, the engine is the big talking point. Nothing really has changed in terms of the suspension setup and all of that. They claim to have made the body a little bit more rigid, but only once we see the global NCAP or Bharat NCAP crash test results will we know for sure if that has really made any difference in terms of the safety of the Seltos. In terms of the driving, well, honestly, nothing much changes. The wheels have gone up by an inch, and that means the ride quality has become even stiffer. Now the Seltos, it had a problem of a stiff ride. A lot of people who bought Seltoses, the GTX especially, they complained about the ride comfort, and even though they claim to have addressed that, this Seltos is the stiffest riding SUV in this comparison test. You can feel every little bump on the road, every little ripple. You go over bad patches of road and you have to slow down. You can't smash over those roads. Unlike, say, the Taigun, for instance, where it will really take those bad roads in its stride. Here, you will have to slow down for bad patches. As for the handling, it's good, but it's not as good as the Taigun. It can grip. The wider tires does help it. Bite. You can push it. It does grip well around corners, but it doesn't have that outright enthusiasm than the Taigun has. That confidence that the Taigun's ultra stiff monocoque gives you, Seltos doesn't give you that. And I'm talking all of this in reference to the Taigun. On its own, in isolation, the Seltos actually is pretty good. Like the speeds that I'm carrying around these corners with very little tire squeal is impressive for sure. The other big updates to the Seltos are obviously this infotainment system, this one big slab of digital real estate. I'll leave all of that for Anand to elaborate upon, but I like it. I like the upgrade that it gives the whole cabin, the whole vibe. I'm not a big fan of are the seats. They feel a bit too small. You sit in those other seats, the Grand Vitara seats, the Taigun seats, they feel nice, wide, comfy, generous. This doesn't feel generous, and even though it's electrically operated in terms of height, you can't go low down enough. You're sitting too high up. The Seltos also has drive modes, so you have the Eco, Normal and Sport. In Sport, the steering weight that increases noticeably, and of course you have the traction modes, snow, mud and sand, which honestly it's really pointless. It's the same like the Harrier. The Harrier also has these traction modes, but this is front wheel drive. If you go into the sand or if you go into slush, you are going to get stuck, and none of these modes are going to get you out. You will have to call a tractor or 5 strong men to push you out. The Seltos also gets ADAS, which is a good safety upgrade on the SUV, and I have to point out that the quality of everything is really first class. For instance, these paddle shifters, these are plastic paddle shifters, but they feel so well put together. All the little buttons on the steering wheel, those feel nice. Like for instance, operating the volume control. I drove the Harrier a couple of weeks ago, and with that new Tata steering wheel, I felt that the indent wasn't deep enough, so every time you had to use the volume toggle, you had to actually use your nail. But out here, this works perfectly. So in terms of ergonomics, the way everything is put together, that sense of quality that you get, Kia, they do a damn good job. And you get everything. You also now get the panoramic sunroof. So everything is thrown at this SUV. And unlike the Grand Vitara, it gets a proper hard cover. So even if the sun is blazing hot and right overhead, it won't give you a headache. I also like this all black theme on the GT line. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. But I think it gives it a nice sporty vibe, though it does make the cabin feel slightly smaller than it is. And fact also is that the Seltos is not the most spacious in this class. I'll toss over to Anand now, and he'll talk a little bit more about the space at the back seat, and of course all the features that you get, which is like loaded, tons of features.
The Seltos is a smart looking SUV. It is universally accepted, and that's why with the update, Kia didn't change too much with the design. A few nips and tucks here and there. The headlamps, the bumper, the tail lamp, they all make the Seltos even smarter than before. And in this group of cars, it does look like a more premium SUV than everything else you get on the market right now. Now let's take you to the interiors and show you what's on the inside of the Seltos. The minute you step inside the Seltos, you know what your money is getting you. It's the best kitted car in this segment. It gets ADAS features, it gets a new wide screen, nicely tapered compared to what it used to get before. It gets cooled seats, drive modes, a big panoramic sunroof, very comfortable seats, and it's electrically adjustable, so you don't have to move, manually like in many other cars. The steering, it adjusts for rake and reach, and you get a banging Bose system. It's the best in this segment. Now let me take you to the rear seat and show you the space in the Seltos. Rear seat space, quite good. Not the best, but you can sit 3 in the Seltos. You get a nice armrest with 2 cup holders here, but a flat seat so the third person can sit comfortably. You get 2 AC vents, 2 Type-C ports, and this gets an air purifier also. The panoramic sunroof, it goes all the way to the back, and so you get a nice clear view of your surroundings. The best bit I like are these blinds. Feels like a premium car. Now let me show you the boot space in the Seltos. The Seltos, like the Creta, has 433 liters of boot space, lies somewhere in between in this segment, but the flat loading bay allows you to take bags in and out quite easily. At rupees 20.3 lakh ex-showroom Delhi, the Seltos is the most expensive car of the lot, but it has a lot of features to back that hefty price. The quality levels are right up there, and the Bose audio system in the Seltos is the best in this class. You also get very cool ambient lighting in the Seltos. You get the widest range of engine and transmission options with the Seltos, a 1.5 litre NatAs petrol and a 1.5 litre turbo petrol. The NatAs engine comes with a 6-speed manual gearbox and the turbo gets a 7-speed DCT gearbox. The one that we have in this test is the turbo petrol with the DCT gearbox. You also get a 1.5 litre diesel engine, same as the one in the Creta on this test. The gearbox options for the diesel are a 6-speed manual gearbox or a 6-speed automatic transmission.
You sit in the Taigun and the first thing that you notice are these seats. They're wide, they got nice side support, and you can put the seat nice and low, so you feel like you're sitting in the car, not on top of the car like in the Seltos and even in the Citroen C3 Aircross for that matter. This driving position is spot on. The steering, it adjusts for reach as well as rake, so you can really get into a nice driving position and sets you up for a day of fast, enthusiastic and enjoyable driving. To drive, nothing comes close to the Taigun. We already did the drag race and proved that the Taigun is the quickest in this test. On paper, it might not have the most power, but it puts its power down better. The engine, it revs with more enthusiasm. The DSG gearbox probably shifts a little faster as well. We can't be sure, but ultimately 0 to 100 in 9.6 seconds, that's the fastest in this test. And it also feels the most enthusiastic. We've talked a million times about the platform, its torsional rigidity, and how because it is so torsionally rigid, it can have softer dampers to deliver good ride, so it can absorb all these small undulations and all of that. It can absorb it really well, yet when it goes around corners, while there is a bit of body roll, it can really handle, it can carry solid speeds around corners. In fact, on tighter corners, it will even lift its inside rear wheel. And that's a sign of how torsionally rigid the body is. And that torsional rigidity, it also impacts the safety. This is a 5-star rated car. In the crash test ratings, the global NCAP crash test ratings, it's scored 5 stars. So if you're looking for a safe car in this test, the Taigun should be your pick. Eyes closed, don't look at anything else. None of the others have a global NCAP crash rating. The Creta has it, the Seltos has it, not the new Seltos, but the pre-facelift Seltos has it. You can go see for yourself. It is nowhere close to what the Taigun has. So if you're looking for a safe car, go for the Taigun. Also, the Kushaq. I must mention the Kushaq. Now, the Kushaq is not here because we couldn't get hold of a car, but whatever I say about the Taigun holds true for the Kushaq as well. Both get the 1 litre as well as the 1.5 engines, both get the same transmissions. It's just the styling, whichever styling you prefer, or say if you have a Skoda dealer closer to you, then look at the Kushaq, or if the Volkswagen dealer is closer to you, or you know them better, look at the Taigun. But that's down to personal preference. Otherwise, mechanically, both are identical. Now it's 3 years since the Taigun and even the Kushaq were launched, and it's starting to look a bit dated. That's the pace of progress. New cars are coming at us thick and fast, facelifts, updates, everything is getting updated so quickly that if something is 2-3 years old, it really does feel old. For instance, this digital cluster now, it's not looking the most modern. The screen, okay, in terms of size, it is just about okay. It's not best in class. That reverse parking camera, the resolution, the size, that's actually very poor now. The sunroof, no panoramic sunroof, just a regular size sunroof. Though this is slightly bigger than the Elevate, I should point that out. Otherwise, this does not feel over-endowed in terms of the equipment. The climate control panel, it's a little fiddly to use. It's not the most intuitive. You prefer to have physical knobs to use and to adjust your climate control. These paddle shifters, they again don't feel the best in terms of quality. But ultimately, it boils down to the driving. This is Evo India. We love driving and we talk about the driving dynamics. And when you find a set of corners, the Taigun is such a joy to throw around. Use the paddles to get a bit of engine braking, keep the motor spinning in its sweet spot. The motor also is so nice, so eager to rev, eager to deliver, and it can carry so much of speed around corners. You really have a blast driving this. We've driven the Taigun so much, the border patrol, the run of Kutch, all over the country, and every time I get behind the wheel, I gain a newfound respect for the Taigun, for these India 2.0 cars. Out on the highway, nothing carries speeds as confidently, as safely, and as easily as the Taigun does. So yeah, it doesn't have as much equipment as its rivals. I know that, but if you enjoy driving, I suggest you look past that and just buy the car that puts a smile on your face, puts a big fat smile around your face. Nothing does the thrill of driving as the Taigun does. Our criticisms of the Taigun remain what they were. The steering, for instance, it should have a little bit more weight that will just add to the sense of sportiness. At the rear, I would have preferred to have disc brakes. Now, there's nothing wrong in terms of the braking distances, but come on, in terms of safety, rear disc brakes are obviously better. And yeah, that's about it. Of course, it could do with a lot more in terms of equipment, but then again, the pricing will go up and that whole equation goes out of whack. So I'm not qualified to comment on that, but it should have a little bit more equipment. I can tell you as much.
The Taigun is the second oldest car in the segment, but because the design is so understated and the lines are so clean, it has aged very well. Compared to a Seltos though, it does look like the Seltos feels like a lot more premium car on the outside. Maybe an update to the Taigun will help it a lot. Overall, it's the most compact car in its segment at just 4.2 meters in length, and that shows in the dimensions of the car. Even visually, you can see how compact this car looks. Now let's take you to the interiors of the Taigun. Step inside and the Taigun does feel as understated as the exterior, but you feel like you're sitting in a solid car. This is the only car in the segment with a 5-star NCAP rating. Otherwise, the materials, some of the hard plastics, they're not quite nice, but the fabric seats, I prefer them over leatherette seats. You get sport mode in the gearbox, you get touch sensitive climate control and a regular sunroof, not a panoramic sunroof. Now let me take you to the back seat and show you the space in the rear. The compact dimensions of the Taigun show in the rear seat as well. The seat is not as wide, so 3 passengers abreast is not going to be as comfortable. Even with this hump, the middle seat passenger is going to find it a little uncomfortable. You get a nice armrest with 2 cup holders here. You get Type-C ports and AC vents here. Now let's show you the boot space in the Taigun. The Taigun has the second smallest boot in this segment, 385 liters of boot space, but the loading bay is nice and low, so you can fit tall bags in this boot. The base variant of the Taigun is the most expensive in this test. Prices for the 1 liter 3-cylinder turbo petrol start from 11.61 lakh and go up all the way to 19.36 lakh for the 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol. It's a bit of a stretch for the amount of car you are getting. However, as you have heard from Sirish, it's a price most of us would be willing to pay for the thrill of driving. Gearbox options include a 6-speed manual gearbox and an automatic for the 1 liter and a 6-speed manual and a 7-speed DSG for the 1.5, the car you see in these videos.
Now, where do I start with the C3 Aircross? I know this is what Anand is supposed to talk about, all the features and all that, but well, you get a manual aircon, you don't get climate control, you don't get a sunroof, you do get a digital cluster, but this is the tiniest digital cluster in this class. The infotainment is okay, that's no problem. The steering wheel looks nice, it's nice to hold. You only get a manual gearbox and you only get the one engine. So you don't get a bigger capacity engine, you don't get a diesel, nothing. One engine, one transmission, and that is that. You do get a wireless charger, I must point out, but you don't get cooled seats, you don't get power assist for the seats. Man, Anand will go on and on about what all is not there. The key, there's no start-stop button. You have to insert the key and crank it yourself. I don't have a problem with that, but it just shows just how much equipment has been taken out of the C3 Aircross. You don't get a lid for the USB. All other cars have a small little cover for the USB, but that's exposed. Cost cutting central out here. Okay, I really should stop talking about that and focus on what I'm supposed to be talking about, and that is the performance, that is the driving dynamics. And as we demonstrated in the drag race, turbo petrol is actually a quick engine. This is a 3-cylinder engine, and you get that typical little roughness. You get it at idle, but out here you also get it when you rev it. You can feel the vibrations through the accelerator coming up through the floor pan. It is a bit gruff, the engine, but it does move. And I suspect the C3 Aircross is also the lightest SUV in this test. And that means with just this turbo petrol engine, it can keep pace with the pack. In fact, it can stay ahead of the Elevate. So this engine, in terms of performance, it's all there. It keeps the C3 right up in the pack, right in the class benchmarks. The gearbox, it's not a Japanese gearbox. I can tell you that much. It's not as slick as the other Japanese manual gearboxes, but it gets the job done. It's not a problem either. The seats, you sit too high up. This has got height adjust, but you're sitting too high up. I've put it as low as it goes, but it's still too high up. The visibility is good. Ride comfort, that's something that Citroen talks so much about. And to be fair, the ride comfort is good. It does ride over bumps and bad roads really well. In fact, the slow speed ride is the best in this class. But once you build up speeds, once you get into triple digit speeds, then it does tend to get a bit bouncy. The harmonics, I don't think, are suited to it being driven harder and faster, especially on bumpy roads. And you do feel a bit of vertical movement, but overall ride comfort is good. I must credit Citroen for that. Space also seems to be pretty good. The seats are nice and wide, they are comfortable. The leatherette finish I don't like, and my backside is starting to perspire a bit, which is not ideal. But otherwise, the comfort, they do what they say. Okay, Citroen talks about comfort, and they do deliver on comfort. Now handling. Okay. First corner, and geez, I'm surprised. This actually handles rather well. We take this one a little faster. Not bad. Not bad at all. Oh, you can really push it. I can hear the jack rod and the spanner flying around in the back. Probably there's no fixed space for it also. But you can go around corners pretty well with the C3. Carry a fair bit of pace through it. There is body roll and all of that, but it handles quite well. The C3 was extremely roly-poly. In fact, once I went around a few corners, I actually popped open the hood to see if there is an anti-roll bar in it. I couldn't believe so much body roll with an anti-roll bar. But this is not bad at all. I honestly wasn't expecting much from the C3, but that's what they say, right? Drive it, experience it, then comment on it. And that's why I haven't commented on it until I've gotten behind the driver's seat. And overall, I'm impressed, to be honest. The C3, I was not impressed at all with it. But this is nice. This is nice. And now that I know the price, and keeping that in perspective, this is very good for the price. This also is a 7-seater, which again Anand will talk about. But you do get, for whatever it's worth, in emergencies, you can squeeze in 7 people in the C3. What the condition will be when you go around corners like this with 2 people right in the 3rd row, that doesn't bear contemplating. But see, it gives you the practicality, it gives you the option. It won't leave you stranded in case you have to squeeze in 7 people. In terms of styling also, I think this looks pretty impressive. It cuts its own nice visual identity. But again, it doesn't have LED lights. There's so many things that it does not have. The door handles, flip up door handles in this day and age. Citroen have got the basics right. The engineering is right. The engine does deliver on performance. The chassis is dynamically sound. It's just that they've gone so aggressive with their cost cutting that you can't look past that. And that is the problem. The C3, at its price, it actually makes so much sense. But do you see a C3 on the road, or do you see punches on the road? And that's the thing with this also. They could have priced it a lakh more, but they could have hidden away all that visual cost cutting. And the C3 Aircross would have been all the better for it. Really, Citroen seems to have done the C3 Aircross a disservice by so aggressively cutting costs here and there. Otherwise, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by it.
The C3 Aircross is based on the C3, which is a segment and a half below, but the C3 Aircross grows in size. It's a lot more muscular, has a lovely stance, and this SUV honestly looks very attractive. It has that typical French flair. It has 17-inch wheels, 200 mm of ground clearance, and if you look at it in the side profile, you can see the longer length of this car. Is the longest SUV in this segment. It neatly hides its USP, a third row of seats in the back. The C3 Aircross is more than 7 lakh cheaper than the Seltos, and that shows in the features and the equipment that this car carries. Even the door handle, look at how flimsy it is. There's a major skimping of features in the C3 Aircross. So you use the key to start the car. You get only a manual gearbox. You get manual AC controls. You don't get a sunroof. It's because you get AC vents on the roof for the middle seat passengers. You get only 2 power window buttons over here. The other 2 are hidden over here, but you do get an armrest. Now let's hop into the second row and the third row and show you the space inside the C3 Aircross. I'm 5 feet 10 and a half. This seat is set to my driving position. There's plenty of knee room, good under thigh support, a large greenhouse, so the C3 Aircross feels very spacious from the back seat. It doesn't get an armrest here though, because this is a 7-seater and this row is going to fold in to enter the third row of seats. You get 2 Type A ports, not Type C ports. That's again in the interest of cost saving. You get your power window switches in the center, so if you're sitting in the back seat with your seat belts on, can't reach it. You gotta stretch in and reach it. The C3 Aircross is known for its cooling. The air conditioning works really well, and the AC vents on the roof, they cool the middle row very, very well. Fairly simple to get into the C3 Aircross third row. It tumbles neatly. But I'm too tall for this and too fat for this. You can get in, but it's a short drive at the most. The C3 Aircross has the biggest boot in the business. Citroen calls this the 5+2 seater, not a 7-seater. That's because you can completely remove the third row of seats. You just tumble it down. There's a lever here. The seat completely comes off and you can walk with it, and you get 511 liters of boot space. Just like Ford did with the Model T, you can get any variant of the C3 Aircross as long as you choose the 1.2 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine and the manual gearbox. Yes, you don't get an automatic, you don't get a 4-cylinder engine, and as you've heard, there are a whole lot of features missing. The benefit of so much cost cutting is the lowest starting price. Just rupees 9.99 lakh will get you the base C3 Aircross. The top spec Aircross will cost you only rupees 12.76 lakh.
Not without good reason is this called the Creta class. Now, the Creta was not the first. There was the Duster before it, but the Creta showed that serious volumes and serious profits could be had out of a mid-size SUV. You didn't have to focus purely on the compact SUVs, juice those excise duty regulations and extract that benefit. They showed that a properly executed mid-size SUV could really be profitable, and that opened the floodgates. Everybody else came following after that. Even Kia used the same Hyundai playbook to come into the segment and bring in the Seltos, based on obviously the same platform, the same engines, everything more or less the same. Yet the Creta and the Seltos differ in one crucial aspect, and that is the Creta is more focused on comfort. The Seltos, it tries to be more sporty, both visually as well as in the way it drives. It's got 18-inch wheels, for crying out loud. But the Creta is calmer. It focuses more on comfort, and I think that is better in the Indian environment. It's kind of similar to what Hyundai have done with the Alcazar and Kia have done with the Carens. The Carens has got better ride comfort, and consequently it has got a far greater fan following, far greater sales. Obviously, the Karen's is better in terms of pricing. But anyway, that's a different segment altogether. Let's focus on the Creta. Now, first things first, the seats. The seats, because they don't have so much of additional bolstering like the Seltos, it actually is more comfortable. You sit a little lower down, you don't sit like on top of the car. The seats are electrically operated, so that's a good thing. It's got coolers, that's another good thing. The infotainment, ideally sized. Okay, it's not the biggest in this test, but this is perfectly good. The digital cluster, it's sort of like a semi-analog, semi-digital cluster, which is okay. That is actually showing its age. And fact is, the Creta is the oldest in this test. This was launched just before the lockdowns. All that mess started off in 2020, if you recall. So the Creta is the oldest, but honestly, the Creta does everything really, really well. And this is the only diesel car in this test. The reason why we got the diesel is that it's the diesel that sells disproportionately more than the petrols in the Creta lineup. And this diesel is absolutely lovely. Okay, you don't get out and out performance, 0 to 112 and a bit seconds, but that's adequate. The fuel efficiency is excellent. The refinement is excellent. This is a fantastic motor. No wonder everybody's buying diesel Cretas. No wonder this still sells 14,000 units every month. This is still the best seller in this class, and for good reason. To drive down the highways, it is effortless. The ride comfort is good. It's not overly stiff like the Seltos. It's got good space, it's got good equipment, it's got this air purifier out here, it's got a panoramic sunroof, it's got a nice little steering wheel. Everything is there. This is now due for an update. There is a updated Creta coming in next year, but it really isn't crying for an update. The only real thing that you would want to change is probably the digital cluster. Well, it's not a full digital cluster, it's got that half analog, half digital cluster. Apart from that, everything seems on par with its rivals. Bose sound system, everything is there. And the most important thing is the way it drives. It soaks in these undulations, it takes in corners easily. It's not the most enthusiastic, okay? It's not the most thrilling. It won't put a huge smile on your face when you go around corners at 100 miles an hour. That's not going to happen, but it is competent. It is a jack of all trades. It does everything you want without skipping a beat. Goes around corners decently. No headache. Seriously, with the Creta, it's like no headache. It's the default choice, and it's something that I would recommend even today. If you're going to be doing a serious amount of distance in your mid-size SUV, you really will be well advised to look at the diesel Creta. Of course, the Seltos also gets the diesel, right? So I have to point that out. But this diesel engine is still relevant. No matter what Maruti says, no matter what the Volkswagen Group says, diesels are still relevant in India. And a good diesel engine is still a joy. It gives you torque, it gives you fuel efficiency, it gives you refinement, it gives you ease of driving. I repeat myself once again, a good diesel is still relevant in this day and age. The gear shift is very nice. The clutch is light. It really doesn't take any effort. Now, what do I not like on the Creta? Well, right from day one, the styling never appealed to me, and it hasn't grown on me. I still don't like the styling. What else? Okay, it's not like a Taigun to drive. The Taigun is more enthusiastic. Third, safety. This really needs to up the safety game. And Hyundai are upping the game in terms of safety. Look at the new Verna. 5 stars in terms of crash safety. The first Indian Hyundai to score 5 stars. And I have no doubt, well, I hope that with the next Creta, the facelifted Creta, Hyundai will similarly take a big step up in terms of safety. As of now, the ratings don't even come close to the Taigun. So that is a big drawback on the Creta right now. Overall, I still give the Creta a buy rating. Eyes closed, you just can't go wrong with this car. Anand will also point out all the features on it, the space inside. This is the most spacious of the lot. But what I will tell you is that if you're looking for a mid-size SUV, the Creta still gets a full buy rating from me. You can buy it eyes closed. You just cannot go wrong with it.
This is the Creta class, as Sirish says, the midsize SUV segment. Well, the Creta has ruled the roost for generations of the Creta, and this new Creta, it is polarizing. It is a radical design. We thought it would polarize a lot of people, but it's a very successful car. 14,000 units sold in the last month itself. This is the oldest SUV in this segment, and Hyundai hasn't even updated it yet. Still, it just works. Petrols, diesels, so many powertrain options. The Creta is the king of this segment. Let me show you the interiors of the Creta now. The Creta was launched before expressways were a big thing in India, and that's why you don't get ADAS in this car yet. It will get it with the update because the Seltos has it now. But otherwise, cruise control, all the features here, nice big screen, automatic climate control. It has cool seats. Remember, 2020 is when the Creta was launched. It has cool seats. It has a panoramic sunroof. The seats are lovely. Very comfortable car. This is a diesel, of course, so you get a manual gearbox, 6-speed manual. Now let me take you to the rear of the car and show you the space in the back seat. Now, just like the Seltos, the Creta has a similar back seat. The cushioning feels a little hard though, probably because this is a dealer car. You get AC vents here. You get a single Type A port here. With the update, of course, you'll get Type C and Type A like you get in the Seltos. You get blinds like the Seltos, so it's a nice premium cabin to sit in. I like the bright beige interiors in the cabin. It makes it look a lot more airy. The last bit, of course, is the armrest with the 2 bottle holders. A very comfortable place to be in. In terms of space, well, knee room, that seat is set to my driving position. I have just about adequate knee room. Headroom is decent. Under thigh support is also adequate. Nothing to complain there. Now let me take you to the rear of the car and show you the boot of the Creta. The Creta was the first car to launch in the segment, and it set a benchmark in terms of space. 433 liters of boot space. Now you get cars with larger boots, but 433 liters, adequate, nice flat loading bay. You can put big bags in and out quite easily because it's nice and flush to the loading bay. Prices of the Creta starts from 10.87 lakh and go up to 19.2 lakh. This car on test is the diesel with the 6-speed manual gearbox and costs rupees 16.32 lakh. The Creta misses out on a few features, but we'd expect all that to get included in the update that comes in 2024. Engine options include a NatAs petrol and a diesel with manual and automatic gearboxes. The 1.5 litre turbo petrol that powers the Alcazar, Verna and Seltos will come to the Creta as well, making the choice of variants even wider.
Unlike the Hector that really took off thanks to all the space inside, the soft suspension and also that big infotainment, the Astor, you don't really see too many of them on the road, do you? It's now, what, 2 years since the Astor was launched, and I think this is the second time I'm driving the Astor. Now, this Astor, the color scheme that you see, the matte black, that's a wrap. That's done by a friend of Evo, Neom Tilwani, who actually lent us his car. We couldn't get an Astor from MG themselves, so we had to borrow it from Friends of India. Thank you guys for loaning your cars for our tests. Now, in terms of the Astor, this gets the 1.5 turbo petrol engine, but this is a 3-cylinder engine. It's not a 4-cylinder engine, and hence it does not have the smoothness of the other turbo petrols on test here. This is though mated to the CVT transmission. So while you do get that CVT rubber band effect, you also get a good launch from start. So at start, you can even spin up the wheels a little bit, and that gives it a good 0 to 100 time. 10.2 seconds is actually only slower than the Taigun and the Seltos. It's quicker than everything else. So this is a quickish SUV, but it's not an SUV that you really want to be pushing. First things first, the Astor is very soft. It's similar to the Hector in that respect, and you go over expansion joints, undulations in the road, and it does move around a fair bit. Like for instance, even the small little expansion joints, and there's a lot of movement. You put, say, 2 people at the back, say you're carrying 4 people, even 5 people, and it sits on its rear suspension. It almost runs out of travel. So dynamically, it's not sorted. It's too soft, and it's like those old school cars that we used to get. Today's cars are much tighter, more together, whereas the Astor, it's not. The second is the steering is all over the place, honestly. There's not much weight. It's too light. There's a lot of imprecision. There's a lot of, see this, play in it. And the steering also, it doesn't adjust for reach, only for rake. So it only adjusts for rake, it doesn't adjust for reach. So you can't even get a good driving position. The seats, they are actually generously proportioned, but they're a tad too soft. So after a while, the seats don't give you the support that you need to do long distances. And the Astor is not something that you would actually want to do long distances in, because it doesn't really have the dynamic polish of the other cars on test. Now, in terms of features, well, obviously this being an MG, it's got tons of features. First things first, you got those eyes looking at you. Hey MG, open the sunroof. Oh, it's working, okay. And it does have a panoramic sunroof. So, like I said, features, there's a lot of. Do you use all this voice business? Let us know in the comments. You also get a digital cluster. Obviously, you get a nice infotainment with a lot of apps inbuilt into it. But now others have also caught up in that race in terms of all this apps and connectivity and all of that jazz. It does not get cooled seats, and it doesn't even get a wireless car charger. Plus, all the USB ports are the regular Type A ports. You don't get USB-C ports. Yeah, now we come to a few corners. Now, in terms of handling, there's a lot of body roll. There's not much in the way of feel or feedback. You also don't get paddle shifters, so you can use the stick to get some engine braking. But this is not a SUV that you really want to be throwing around corners. And it doesn't even have the steering precision to place it with proper accuracy, especially when you're going around corners at serious speed. Yeah, so dynamically this is bottom of the pack, clearly. But knock it back a bit, don't drive it at 8 tenths, dial down to 7 tenths, and this is a comfortable, quiet, relaxed kind of car. MG, they really load their cars up with everything, and the top-end version of the Astor, it also gets level 2 ADAS. So you really do get everything. You also get powered seats. They're not cooled, but you do get powered seats.
The Astor was the first car in its segment to get level 2 ADAS features, and that got a lot of people interested in this car, got them to MG showrooms to look at this car, and it does look very handsome. It gets nice white 215 section tires, clean lines and headlamps in their conventional position. The rear is looking a little dated, but otherwise the Astor does look very handsome from every angle. Now let's take you to the interiors of the Astor and show you what you get on the inside. The interior of the Astor is a very nice place to be in. The seats are electronically adjustable. The steering adjusts only for rake, not for reach. That's a downer, but otherwise the interior is lovely. Lots of soft touch dashboard materials. The seats are lovely, very comfortable. You get a panoramic sunroof. You get this MG AI assistant, a little gimmicky, but a nice cool feature in this car. Now let's take you to the back seat and show you what kind of space you get in the Astor. The back seat of the Astor, you don't get enough knee room like you get in an Aircross, but the large panoramic sunroof, that makes the cabin quite airy. You get AC vents here. You get Type A ports again like the C3 Aircross, not Type Cs. You get an armrest in the center and 2 bottle holders. The seats are comfortable, lack a little bit of thigh support, but the headroom is quite nice. Just like the C3 Aircross, the Astor also is a big booty car. 488 liters of boot space, lots of space to take your weekend's luggage. The Astor's price starts from 10.81 lakh and goes up to 18.69 lakh. The turbo petrol 3-cylinder motor in this video has been discontinued. You can only buy the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder NatAsp mill now, that's either mated to a 5-speed manual or a CVT gearbox. On the features front, the Astor gets a 360-degree camera and a panoramic sunroof. There's no wireless charging, and navigating through the infotainment system is quite a task.
Well, the verdict of this comparison test is too important, and these SUVs are too closely matched to actually give out a verdict like that. And that's why we drove it some more. We ran out of light, we drove it back to Pune, we spent the morning sitting down with Anand's Excel sheets, noting down these SUVs and scoring them on individual parameters. And at the end of it, using all the Excel prowess that Anand has, the winner turned out to be the Hyundai Creta. Well, It's surprising because this is 3 years old, and also there is a facelift coming up very soon. But fact of the matter is that the Creta does everything that the Creta class needs and demands. It has got space, it has got good enough performance, it has got a wide range of powertrain options, it has got features. It looks, well, styling is personal and you can make up your own mind on it. But honestly, the Creta is a jack of all trades. It might not be the master of one, but it does everything so well that it rates really highly on all the individual parameters. In fact, those Excel sheets, we have the scoreboard out here so you can see it, and we also have a detailed analysis of it on the Evo India website. The link should be somewhere out here so you can go there and you can check out how we rated and why we rated these on all the individual parameters. But the best SUV in the Creta class still remains the Creta. That said, this is the Evo India channel. I'm not wearing my Thrill of Driving t-shirt right now, but if you're looking for the Thrill of Driving, where's the Taigun? Yeah, the Taigun is still the number one in this class. The performance, the handling, the thrill that it gives you, the fun that you have from behind the wheel is unmatched with the Taigun. But second, using Anand's Excel sheets, is the Elevate. The powertrain might not really hold its own against the other turbocharged motors, but it is smooth, it is refined, it really does things very well, and that's why the Elevate is second in our analytical score sheets. Third is the Grand Vitara. Now, initially I thought the Grand Vitara would be the best amongst this segment, but the only real drawback is that the space at the back is not as good as the other SUVs. It is a bit cramped in there, and if you're going to be chauffeur driven in, the Grand Vitara is not the best out here. But the powertrain, the hybrid powertrain, really gets our vote, and this being Evo India, we will always push the cause for technology. So why does the newest, the Seltos, not win this test? It has got performance, it has got features, it's got damn good styling. In fact, this is the best looking SUV in this test. The only real drawback is the ride comfort. It is a bit too stiff. So in terms of everyday usability, that's the only real drawback with the Seltos. Otherwise, the winner of your Creta class is here, the Creta. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments.